Hello, students. I'm Dr. Connie King Gotchel, the Vice President of Student Services here at Nueces Adatsa Sanish College. And today I want to talk with you about Title IX and the Clery Act. I'm going to share my PowerPoint on the screen. So Title IX in the Clery Act, no person in the United States shall on the basis of sex be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. It also seeks to reduce or eliminate the barriers to educational opportunity caused by sex discrimination in institutions receiving federal funding. The Clery Act is a consumer protection law that requires colleges and universities to provide safe campuses and to post their crime statistics and policies. And every October 1, we post our annual security report, which includes information about crimes that have been reported to local and tribal police. What is Title IX? It's really no sexual discrimination, no sexual assault, period. If you see something, say something, do something. Title IX basics, that includes the prohibition of sexual discrimination. It provides students and employees with rights. It requires the college to respond to complaints. Even if a report is made to the police, it requires the college to have a prompt, impartial, and equitable resolution process to address any reports. Protects all genders regardless of a person's sexual assignment at birth. Protects pregnant and parenting students, requires that all genders have equal opportunities to participate in sports and receive the benefits of competitive sports. In addition, the Title IX has certain things that we have to adhere to. We chose the standard of evidentiary standard. The standard of proof in most civil cases in which the party bearing the burden of proof must present evidence which is more credible and convincing than that presented by the other party. So it's basically the greater weight of evidence is the one that we've chosen for our college. Title IX updates. So there are three definitions or three parts of the definition for sexual harassment. Number one, an employee of the recipient is our college, conditioning the provision of an aid, benefit, or service of the recipient on an individual's participation in unwelcome sexual conduct. In other words, the employee cannot utilize any kind of sexual behavior to get a student or anyone else to do anything. Two, unwelcome conduct determined by a reasonable person to be so severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive that it effectively denies a person equal access to the recipient's education program or activity. And three, sexual assault has some components that include dating violence, domestic violence, and stalking. Definition: sexual discrimination is the sexual harassment and is defined as conduct directed at a specific individual or group as identifiable individuals that subjects the individual or group to treatment that is adverse to their employment or education. Title IX updates include the grievance process that our college has revisited, and we are providing our students, God forbid anything happened, but if it did, we would provide notice about any allegations against an individual. And then the parties involved would be fairly expected to respond to those allegations. You'd have an opportunity to do so. And then there will be interviews and an investigation. So the identities of the parties involved would be kept confidential. And then finally, the statement that the respondent, that would be the person who would be responding to an allegation, is presumed not responsible until they've gone through a hearing process. And both parties would have an opportunity to review their information prior to the hearing. So it is our responsibility as a college to train our Title IX investigators, and our adjudicators are those who would be hearing any particular case that might come about through an investigation. And we would use materials that do not rely on sex stereotypes or that promote impartial investigations and adjudications. We have made these materials public as of Friday, August the 14th. They're on our website. If we would have to come to a hearing, then we would provide information on that, and most likely we would be using Zoom for a private live hearing. We can no longer use the single investigator module, so we will be using at least 2 investigators if a case should arise. And then as those statements are prepared, they would go to a hearing, and then the parties involved would have the benefit of cross-examination during that hearing. They would have to have an advisor representing himself or herself. The individual cannot represent himself or herself. We have 3 different roles for the staff for Title IX. The coordinator, that is myself, and I would be collecting any information and assigning any investigators. I can also serve as an investigator. We have a Title IX investigator role as well. That individual would go at great lengths to find out all the information regarding the person who would report the incident, and then the respondent as well. And then finally, at a hearing, there would be a decision maker, and in our case, we're selecting 2 decision makers to hear the case. Definitions include the complainant. That would be an individual who's alleged to be the victim of conduct that constitutes sexual harassment. The respondent is the individual who's reported to be the perpetrator of the conduct that constitutes that sexual harassment or discrimination. The recipient is the institution receiving the complaint, NHSC. The formal complaint would be a written document that either the individual who has reported as the complainant or the Title IX coordinator has the option of signing that document. An advisor would be a person who has agreed to assist either the complainant or the respondent, and each of those people would need to have his own or her own advisor for the Title IX hearing. And that advisor, if need be, could be a faculty or staff member, a friend, or an attorney. That is not necessary to have an attorney, though. Definitions include supportive measures. So if a complainant would come to us, we would do everything to help that person to be okay and feel safe and be safe. Remedies, those would occur after a final regulation has been determined, and then a sanction might be a disciplinary piece that might happen for a student or an employee. Formal complaints can be reported in 3 different ways: by the complainant himself or herself, a third party who identifies himself or herself, and then anonymously. So that person does not have to give his name or her name. Mandatory reporting is what we're requiring of all of our employees here at NHSC. Confidential reporting is what we're also requiring, so that if a student would come to an employee, they would definitely have to bring that to the Title IX coordinator. However, it's not something that would get blasted out on the phone or email or anything, but it would remain confidential. Reporting to the police, we strongly encourage a complainant to also report any incident of sexual violence to the local tribal police here in Newtown or wherever that student lives. The grievance process is also part of the Title IX updates. And as far as the grievance process, that would occur if the Title IX coordinator, having had information from the investigators, sees that this is determined to be a situation where, yes, we will go forward with this, and there's enough information there to say, yes, there's a reason to go forward. And then the grievance process begins. And from there, there's a series of the complainant would put into writing, and then he or she would be given an opportunity by the investigators to make statements and provide information. The respondent would provide information. The investigators would do everything they could to find out as much as they could from any witnesses or anything that would provide information for the situation. In writing, then, the Title IX coordinator would provide information to both parties, the complainant and the respondent, as to when a hearing might take place. And also the advisors would be informed so that they would be there representing each of those students and or employees. And then finally, the decision makers would be there as well, because they would hear out the hearing, both sides, and make a decision at the end of what was provided to them. There are incidences, however, when a formal complaint could be dismissed, just depending if it did not fit the definition of sexual harassment. And in addition, if an employee and or a student is no longer enrolled or employed at the college. An appeal could also be part of the process, and after a decision is made, if a student and or employee is not satisfied with the outcome, the president could appoint a board and or committee of her choosing to hear out the case. It would not be a new case. It would be information presented, so new evidence which could substantially affect the outcome should be heard, but it's not an entirely new case. It's the same case with new information, new evidence. And so at that time, any sanctions would probably not be in place until the final decision is made, just depending on the situation and if there are any legalities involved. In addition, the final decision would be communicated in writing by that committee appointed by the president. And of course, to have an appeal heard, you would have to put that request for an appeal into writing. And there are some time frames there to which you would have to put that into writing, and by which the president would have to have the team together to hear that out and then to respond. Retaliation means getting back at someone, and it is totally not acceptable and prohibited. So in fact, the college has every right to talk with the respondent, who would be the person who's supposedly accused of something, and that letting them know that that is not something that is acceptable. Cannot be retaliation involved in this at all. These are the trained team members that we have here at NHSC. Myself, Connie King-Gotchel, VP of Student Services. As I said, I'm the Title IX coordinator, and I have level 3 investigation training. Robert B.J. Rainbow, who's our VP of Academics. Jen Janicek Hartman, who's our VP of Campus Services. Dina Dorval, who's our nursing pre-instructor, and Deanna Rainbow, who's our counselor. Dion Carter is our Director of Security and Safety, and he's also working on his training as well. Amy Matthews, Sydney Prosper, and Wes Davidson. If you have any questions, you can email me at cfrank@nhsc.edu or call my office phone 701-627-8015. Thank you, and I hope that you're going to feel safer on campus this semester and in the semesters to come, knowing that we have our processes in place for helping you should something occur, and hopefully it will not. Thank you.